You guys better get out of my way. I got Sweet Tooth coming in hot. Oh, are we recording?
Oh, that.
Okay. Uh. Well, it's been 25 years for a special someone. We're gonna celebrate their birthday today. We're talking about the PS2. Hey everybody, welcome back to another Wasted Shack episode. So as you can see, there's only the two of us, the only two that matter right now. Anyways, the other guy never even had a PS2. So
Yeah,
what
it's
would he do here?
the only two that had a PS2.
Exactly. So that's why the two of us are here. I am Country Boy, and I am the new God of War. And with me today, I got my buddy. He'll introduce himself,
I'm LewisLightning, PlayStation fan since the OG days.
and he's knocking on death's door. I don't know if you can hear it in his
Yeah,
voice, so just forgive him for that.
this was such a big anniversary that we wanted to cover it, but unfortunately, I kind of fell under the weather, so I am just all kind of stuffed up with this cold. But I said, "Fuck it, we're gonna do it anyway." It's gonna be our sickest episode yet.
Sick, bro.
But yeah, we didn't want to miss this, so I'm gonna tough my way through this. And if you were here, if you have smell-o-vision, you'd be smelling the Vicks vapor rub I'm coated in right now.
Ooh. Oh, I can smell it right now. But yeah, like we said, we both of us had PS2s. I originally had the original PS1 as well too. So graduating to the PS2 was just like a natural progression for me. But did you ever have a PS1 there, Lewis Lightning?
No, I had N64 that time, but I had
Yeah,
friends. I had friends that had PS2 or PS1, other than yourself. And
yeah.
I would go over there and I'd play games with them, and I'd be like, "Oh, this is pretty cool. This is pretty cool." So once next gen came out, I went and got a PS2, but I never had the original PS1.
And yeah, it was definitely an upgrade. I know I loved the PS1, but then you definitely saw the leap graphically, not so much like you do nowadays. It's like you can barely see the difference between a PS4 and a PS5 game. It's almost like the same thing. Whereas PS1 to PS2, that was definitely the next evolution. I would say it was definitely a big step forward. And so today we're going to talk about like all the games that we loved growing on the PS2, and maybe some of the hardware that we are also played with, or maybe we never got to play with, but we know that it existed and we maybe would have liked to have tried it. But I mean, starting off, if you want to go on to maybe a game or two that you remember back in the PS2 days.
I'm gonna start with something I remember that I didn't originally have. Like I think this was just before I got a PS2. So there was a kid in our class, Corey, and he was on my bus
Green,
on my bus route.
right, green.
And we talked all the time because he sat like either behind me or with me or whatever. We shot the shit, and he was a gamer too. And I went over to his house one time. He's like, "Oh yeah, you come over, play my PS2." And he had Smuggler's Run. I don't know if you ever played
Yeah,
that one.
yeah.
Yeah,
No, I haven't played it, but he talked about it all the time. I know exactly what you're talking about.
yeah. So that was like one of my earliest memories playing Smuggler's Run. It was just like I remember it being like really sandy. You had like missions to do, like jumps and stuff like that. It was more of a racing game from what I remember. I never owned it myself, but I
Yeah,
played it at his place, and actually it reminded me of one of the other games I got early on, which was ATV Off-Road Fury.
Off-Road Fury. Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
I think it's the first one. I'm
yeah,
pretty sure I have them over here, but
yeah.
and that one reminded me of that, so that's why I got into that. I'm like, oh yeah, off-roading and stuff. That was kind of fun and cool thing to do. But yeah, one of my
I'll jump.
earliest ones.
I'll jump into what you were saying too with Corey Green here. Shout out to that guy. I haven't seen that guy in years, but yeah, he was the first person that I knew that had a PS2 as well. And so when I got one, he was borrowing me some of his games. And the first time I'd ever played a Grand Theft Auto was when he borrowed me Grand Theft Auto 3, and I didn't know what this game was about at all. Like this was like the next generation of gaming for me, like having an open world that you could just do whatever you want, steal whatever you want. That was awesome. So
Yeah,
yeah, that really stood out for me, having Grand Theft Auto 3 for the first time ever. And then also going like I also played Off-Road Fury as well too, the ATV Off-Road Fury 1, 2, I think 3 as well too. And what I remembered about at least the first game was always because you go like this open world sort of settings, and you didn't have to race. So we just me and my friends, we basically just kind of find the limits of where the border was, and when you
and
get to that limit, you don't know where it is.
but it shoots you back.
It launches you like a mile. You're
Yeah,
just flying. It was awesome. Like just ragdoll physics of your guy just flying and your bike or your quad going flying. So cool. Like that was something I'd never seen before. And I don't even know if they could have done that on the PS1, but it was just a memory that I remember from the ATV games and Grand Theft Auto. Uh, any other games that you want to
well,
mention?
so you mentioned Grand Theft Auto. Like I like the series. I never owned them until Grand Theft Auto, uh, not not three. What's it called?
Vice City or San
No,
Andreas?
San Andreas. That's the one I
Okay.
got. And then
Yeah.
it was an interesting story because I used to go to police auctions all the time, and I went to a police auction because one of the issues that with the PS2 was that I found that like my laser, like the laser that read stuff, that one went out on me in like 3 or 4 systems. So
Oh,
I would just go to the police auction and I would just buy a new one, right? So
yeah.
I bought a new one, and in the tray, like they don't check them or anything, but I open the tray up and there's fucking San Andreas is sitting in there. So I got San Andreas along with the new PS2,
Sure.
and that's my favorite. It's my favorite Grand Theft Auto of all of them.
Oh, of all of them.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean I haven't. I have played the newer ones, but like I don't own anything like any of the newer ones, right? But
Yeah.
it's definitely my favorite of the OG series. But
Yeah.
also just one more to tie into this police auction thing. Another game that I bought from the police auction for PS2 was kind of like a GTA clone, Simpsons Hit and Run.
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic game as well.
Man, you bringing up games that I wish they would do like remasters of or something because I want to finish Hit and Run because I played so much of that game and then I just fell off for some reason. Something else came in its place and I never got to finish it. And I don't want to go back to the
Yeah.
PS2. I don't want to have to go find my PS2 and plug it in and use RCA cable adapters and all that stuff and plug in like, and all those graphics. Doing a remaster, guys. Do a remaster of some of these games, like
I'm
do like especially Hit and Run.
I'm right there with you. I never finished either Hit and Run or San Andreas. Like I put in tons of hours and I got far, but like never completely finished either of them. But I heard like a lot of people talking about making like a remaster, even like a fan made one that people are trying to either make it that way or pressure whatever studio has the rights now to re-release it as a remaster.
Yeah.
But what's the other game you want to talk about?
Oh, I got tons. So one of the things that I loved about gaming back in the day, even before the PS2, was platformers. Platformers were my bread and butter. Mascot platformers, especially. And so the PS1, you had your Crash Bandicoot, you had your Spyros, and then so when they graduated to the PS2, they didn't continue with those series. They actually started their whole new series. So they had Jack and Daxter, they had Ratchet and Clank, and then Sucker Punch came in the vein, and they started with their Sly Cooper series. And so those are still kind of my favorite types of games is the platformers and Jack and Daxter is still my favorite series to date. I can go back and play those games. Again, I don't want to go back to the PS2 and play them, but I do have the remastered version on the PS3. If they do a remaster of any of these games on the PS5, I would buy that in a heartbeat because I absolutely love. I played the hell out of those games. I would replay those games. And there's so many Ratchet and Clank games nowadays that they every system that's come out since the PS2 has had a game for Ratchet and Clank, so they're still going with that. And yeah, I just want more of those games. I just want to harken back to the old school days, and that is what I loved about the PS2 is that they started their own games, even though they had franchises start on the PS1, but they wanted to progress. They didn't want to continue in the same vein of what they were doing before.
Yeah, and I got kind of a little bit of the opposite where you were talking about like a new series that pops up on PS2. Mine was kind of like I said, I didn't own PS1. I had an N64, but I played game stuff, and one of those games I really enjoyed was Metal Gear Solid. So
Oh yeah,
that's a series that when I got my PS2, I'm like, okay, I bought Metal Gear Solid because PS2 is backwards compatible. I could play these old games now, right? I got the whole Metal Gear Solid, so I got the original, Sons of Liberty is the second one, Snake Eater, and that was all there was for PS2. But I went into
mm-hmm.
PS3 as well. But yeah, those games are fantastic. Obviously, they have a huge following as well, right? Like
Yeah,
they're still going on now. Like I probably quit after four, but they're
yeah.
coming out with another one I think sometime soon, or maybe
Yeah, they did five, and then they've been hinting at maybe doing another one.
it's a
Um,
remaster. They're doing a Delta, I think it's called.
yeah, that was Snake Eater, wasn't it? Wasn't it like they're
Yeah,
redoing Snake Eater? I think
yeah.
because technically Snake Eater is a prequel, isn't it, to
It's a,
one and two?
it's a prequel. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, sequentially, I guess it makes sense to do that one
yeah.
first if that's what they're doing.
But yeah, and then another one just because this covers like a third of my collection. The SmackDown games. Like I got no
Mm.
like SmackDown 1 and SmackDown 2. Like those are PS1 games and I played those with my buddies all the time. And then when I got my own PS2, I bought everything for SmackDown cuz I just loved wrestling, right? So I know I have like a third of my collections of SmackDown stuff and I know you play them a lot too. You could tell the story like we played it a 30-hour famine.
Yeah. So yeah, probably my favorite memory is playing for the PS2 because we had 30-hour famine, which was you would raise money for I guess it was for it wasn't cancer. It was for I guess for kids in Ethiopia or in South
It's
Africa or
for
something.
starving children.
Yeah, starving children. I couldn't remember exactly where it was, but yeah. So in school, we did this 30-hour famine, and literally didn't eat anything for 30 hours, but we were able to spend the night in our school, and we got to bring whatever we wanted to, and we brought our PlayStations, and we got to play games in school, and we just did that most of the time that we were there. I remember three of the games that we played there was one of them was SmackDown. I can't remember which SmackDown it was. Was it
Oh,
SmackDown versus Raw or SmackDown like 2003 or something like that? I forget which one it was,
it
but
would
we
have
played
been
that one.
pretty early because yeah, we were done in '04, right? So
That we played that game. I know we played. I played Off-Road Fury as well too, which we'd already mentioned before. And we played with one of our teachers. We played SmackDown and another game with our teacher, Mr. Stamatopoulos. Shout out to
yeah,
that guy. Don't know where he's at
I
nowadays.
knew that was gonna come up.
He was it was fun playing these because he was so much of a child when we played with him. I mean, when we played SmackDown, he was always Undertaker, always
Yep,
Undertaker.
yep,
He's like, okay, you got to be someone different. We change it up every once in a while. Like I played as Tajiri for fucking Christ's sake.
yeah,
Like that guy is tiny. He's not a good wrestler, but whatever. He was fun to watch. He always played as Undertaker because he was big and he always had like the highest rating, and so he would try and kick our ass, but we'd double team and we'd kick his ass. And then another game that we played, which was fun as hell, is Time Splitters 2, which I know you and I have talked about it to death on this
yeah.
channel probably. We love that. It's a classic shooter, like kind of like GoldenEye. There were so many different modes you can play, and we love one of the modes we love playing is flame tag,
Oh
where you
yeah,
basically just try not to get touched by the other guys that's on fire. And so we like playing that, but Mr. Stamatopoulos, he would enough flame tag. He whined and cried because he didn't want to keep playing the same modes that you and I love playing.
yeah,
And I remember Lewis said, "Give the baby his bottle." He's like, "He's like, this is our teacher." And he
yeah.
says,
He's like, "I'll give you your bottle," he says to me.
"Yeah,
Like
what does
what?
that even mean? What does that mean?" Yeah, it was just it was a great time. 30-hour family. It was. I mean, it was fun playing with him even when he wasn't being a whiny baby. Uh, but yeah, Time Splitters, bring back that franchise as well too, because that's another great game that I know we love. Um, I can do a lot more if you
Oh
want me to
yeah,
continue. If not.
I got a lot more
So
too.
so the first game I'll mention, not the first game I'll mention, the first game I got on my system was Twisted Metal Black. I know you're not a big Twisted Metal fan. I've been a Twisted Metal fan since the PS1 days. But when I got it, I didn't expect it to be as dark as it was because I played Twisted Metal 1 and 2, and those were darker games. But then 3 and 4 were from different developers on the PS1. And they were kind of they were more kid friendly, I guess, sort of. They were still kind of a little bit dark, but more PG esque. Then I got Twisted Metal Black, and it was dark. Like there was murder, there was suicide. It was really dark and a lot of blood. And I did not expect that, and it was the first game that I got on my PS2, which I was still pretty young then. I guess it came out in 2000. I guess I've been 14, I guess technically at the time, but still, like it was darker than I expected it to, and I had lots of fun. I played with every character. I did all of their endings, and again, I want more Twisted Metal to come out. I know they had Twisted Metal in the PS3, but it wasn't quite the same because it didn't get all the characters that I love. Uh, what do you got?
Well, I was gonna say I actually had Twisted Metal Black as well, but I didn't buy it or anything. Like in college, we would hang out with buddies and stuff, and this girl, like, she came over and she had like a PS2 or whatever. She's like, "Oh, it's my brother's or whatever." And she brought this PS2 over and she left all these games with me. She left Twisted Metal Black and State of Emergency, I think it's called.
Okay, yeah,
And
I
yeah,
vaguely remember that game.
and I'm like, "These aren't mine." She's like, "Well, I don't care. They're my brother's," and that, whatever. I sold them. I don't have them anymore. I didn't want them
Yeah,
either. But anyways, two games I'm gonna talk about are the kind of just like these weird one-off games that are a little bit outliers. But the Getaway, which was also like a GTA kind of clone in some way.
yeah, yeah.
It's based on like a play or something, like a British play that was
Is it
apparently
okay?
pretty popular. But it played like GTA, but except you were in London, so you're driving on the other side of the road.
Yeah,
They had a really cool feature where, like, instead of having like waypoints telling you where to go on the road or anything, they just had like your signals on your car as you're driving. You'd be
yeah,
like start signaling automatically left or right, so you're like, "Oh, this is where I'm supposed to go, left or to the right." And they had like this mechanic, which kind of dated now, but you could like grab someone hostage and like you could use them as a meat shield as you're firing back, which is
yeah,
innovative at the time, but it was
yeah.
still a little bit clunkier and weird controls. But yeah, the other one I want to point out is Shadow of Rome. I think I brought it up once or twice before.
I think it was one of your hidden gems. I think one time.
Yeah, Shadow of
Maybe.
Rome. It's like a gladiator-based game. You're like you played as like this little kid sometimes too. It was like the stealth portion, but the meat and potatoes of that game was actually like, you're a gladiator in the arena, and you could like cut people's arms off, and you can grab whatever weapons were on the ground. Like if you kill someone, they drop their weapon, you could take, their weapon, and it could be like uh, a spear, or it could be like a sword, or it could be, an arm. You could cut the guy's arm off, or throw a rock, or throw a skull. And there was like boss fights and stuff that were like big elephants and stuff. But that was a really great game, but I guess it didn't do well. But it was the basis for the system that became Dead Rising. So like the
Okay.
mechanics, like it felt the same as Dead Rising. I bring that up because if you play Dead Rising, it was that, but like
Yeah.
gladiator stuff. It's a really cool game.
Oh, I
You
yeah, I
never
never
played
played
it?
that.
Oh,
I'd only played the demo for not Shadow of Rome. I played the demo for the Getaway that you mentioned, so I could play I played a little bit of that. But yeah, Shadow of Rome, I had never played that one. But you mentioned it before, and I remembered it sounded awesome, like being able to like delimb people and stuff like that. Like back in the PS2 days, that's pretty innovative. That's pretty awesome. So some other games that I'll bring up. Uh, Eco is a game that I first I had it on a demo disc, and I played the hell out of that demo disc. I bought tons of games on that demo disc that I played. Like I think I bought almost every game that was on that demo disc. Twist, sorry, Time Splitters was on there. Jack Daxter was on there. Eco was on there. So I loved that demo disc, and then I eventually got the full game. And you're this kid with these horns. So you're kind of a cast out from society. Nobody wants you there, and then you find this girl that's in a cage, and she's like glowing white, and you're basically your whole mission is just to save her, to get her out of this dark castle sort of area. And there's like these demons that are always chasing after you. It was different, but you're always like hand holding. It was literally.
yeah,
Uh,
escort.
it's literally what you're doing. You're holding your hand the whole time. Escort mission. The whole game is an escort mission, but it wasn't shitty. It wasn't a shitty escort mission. I enjoyed it for what it was. And then the next game that this studio came out with is still one of my favorite games of all time, Shadow of the Colossus.
Yeah,
That game is pure art. I would say it is beautiful start to finish. You just basically all you're doing is finding these giant colossi and you're taking them down. That is like the whole game. And I know you've played it.
yeah, I had that too. I was saying, okay, it's gonna be either bringing up Shadow of Rome or Shadow of the Colossus, and I was like, if I say Shadow of, like it'll clue in John if I don't say it. So, uh,
I had to start with Eagle first because that was first, and then
yeah,
move into Shadow of the Colossus. Yeah.
something else that you didn't say yet that I know you've played because that's where I kind of first experienced it was the Burnout series. Um,
Oh yeah.
so I think I first kind of played it with you when you were living in the city with JJ and stuff. I don't know which one it was, Burnout Takedown or Burnout
Burnout
Revenge.
3 is the one that I had on the PS2. Burnout 3.
But yeah, that's what got me into it. And then like I enjoyed it a lot. I don't think I ever owned it on the PS2, but I know I played the shit out of it when I was at your place. And then I got like Burnout Paradise. But yeah, Burnout was a great series that I loved on there. And the other one
The
I had
crumple
right.
physics. I love the crumple physics of that game.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, it was arcade racing. It's not like a straight up racing game never really does it for me. I like the arcadeness
Agreed.
where you can like bash cars and have a little bit more fun with it.
I could never get into Gran Turismo because of that reason. It's just too realistic. You didn't have that fun arcadey feel to it.
Yeah. And another one that I really liked, I had it in the opening here, Justice League Heroes. Like I didn't know anything about it when I bought it. It was one of those like, oh, I went to Video Update and looking for something to rent, and I'm like, Justice League Heroes. Look, I like superheroes and stuff. I'll give this a try. It'll probably be shit, but like, no, it was actually pretty good. It was kind of like Marvel Legends in a way, but I really enjoyed it, and that's why I bought it when like the what does it say? It doesn't tell me. One of those rental places was shutting down. They sold it off, so I bought it from them. But you can play as like all the Justice League, and like it was a multiplayer game. So you had like Green Lantern, Green Arrow, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, all those guys. You could play as them all, and they're all different people you could play with. Of all the superheroes. So a little bit of
Mhm.
something for everyone. And another thing I just remembered that I rented, because this kind of goes back to a feature about the PS2, is that I rented. I think it was Resident Evil Code Veronica. I can't remember what it
Okay.
was, but I'm only bringing it
Okay.
up because it was an online game, and the PS2 you get like this big chunkin adapter that you slot it into the back of your system, and you could plug in like the Ethernet cables, whatever. You could play online. That was like the first thing for PlayStation you could play online, at least on in my experience. Maybe there was something for PS1, but I never owned one. But for the
I don't think
PS2,
so.
for the
I
PS2,
don't think
yeah,
the PS1. PS2, I never had any adapter plug in for online. I'd always like been wanting to like dabble into it. I just didn't know. Wherever I lived, like I know when I had my PS2, I was mostly at home with my parents and stuff still, and we didn't have really good internet, so it wouldn't really been very good
yeah.
anyways. But
I was gonna say
uh,
the experience wasn't very good for me. Like bad internet and like it was an older game and no one was playing it. I don't think it reviewed very well, but yeah,
yeah,
just that I played it online. Like, oh, that was an experience for me.
we can talk about a couple other things that PlayStation 2 also had. Like I know, like the controller I showed you just a second ago had the controllers are basically the same as the PS1 controllers. So they were it was nice that they were able to
Yeah,
go back and forth. You could use both for either.
but they
Uh,
it had Rumble. That was one thing. Or
yeah,
did the PS1
yeah.
have Rumble? I don't think it originally did.
The original one didn't, but the DualShock
Once they had the
one did.
joysticks, yeah,
Yes, yeah. And then you, as a PlayStation owner, you needed to have one of these, which is the multi-tap.
yeah,
You couldn't have four players otherwise, unlike the Nintendo 64, which automatically had four players on there. So you need to buy one of these. Unfortunately, Sony knew what they were doing. And then there's also like the iToy that it came out with. So I think that was one of the first like cameras you could have. I know they've had like sensor bars for systems like the Nintendo, so you could have like Duck Hunt and stuff like that. But yeah, I think this might have been the first camera that I remember seeing. Maybe Dreamcast might have had something like that too. I'm not sure, but from my memory, that's what I remember being one of the first cameras.
well, something else, like I know this isn't unique to it or whatever, but PS2 still had memory cards, and I just know, like when you were talking about cameras and stuff, like, well, I didn't have a camera, but I had like, because it played DVDs, that I had like a little controller adapter. Like you plug in this controller. I think it went into like the controller port, or maybe it went into the
Oh,
memory card. But then
yeah, that sounds familiar.
then you could just like use it like a controller and fast forward movies and hit play, pause, because DVDs were big at the time. They were the new thing, and you get
Yeah,
like a controller just for that.
just the fact that you could play DVDs, which was like it was basically the cheapest version of a DVD player you could get as a PlayStation 2. Similar to when the PS3 came out, like the Blu-rays, like that was it was really cool that way. Like people were like, hey, I don't really play games, but I want a DVD player, so buy it
Well,
for that
and that
reason.
it's like a dual use thing, right? Like if you're a parent, you're like, hey, I got a DVD player for this new things I can watch all the movies, and my kid can play it. If you were the parent in that situation, right?
Exactly, exactly. It wasn't just for games. So a few more games I'll throw out here. Killzone. I played the first Killzone on the PS2. That was guys from the Hellgas, the guys with the red eyes. If you remember, it was pretty cool. It was one of the better graphically looking games on the PS2. And another shooting game I'll bring up is Psyops, the Mindgate Conspiracy.
Oh yeah,
That was a game. I know you played the demo for it. And again, it's another game that I never fully finished, but I got really far into. Like you can control guys' minds, so you could actually be them, or you could actually lift guys up in the
yep.
air with your mind and
You had
like toss them
pyrokinesis.
against the wall.
You
Yeah,
had
yeah,
yeah,
pyrokinesis. Totally. There was so many different powers you could do. It was kind of like when you were a Jedi almost, but you could be good, bad. You just do whatever you want with it. It was like a fun sandbox, just playing with ragdoll physics, and like ragdoll physics was like a new thing for the PS2, I think too,
yeah,
and it was just fun to do that.
yeah. I'll just throw out some random ones too, like Marvel Nemesis: Rise of the Imperfects. I don't know if you ever played that one.
I don't think so.
It's like a fighting game, like kind of like more like an arena fighter, I guess. And you got to be like all these Marvel heroes, and then they had like this. It was from a comic line, but these new villains called the Imperfects, which were like, one guy was all electricity, another guy was like he could make. She could make tremors because she was like a dancer and stuff, but it was kind of cool, and I remember having a lot of fun with it. It doesn't review well now, but I had fun with it back then. Another big one that I didn't get until like later, but it started on PS2, which I got after the fact, was Guitar Hero. So I got like
Oh yeah.
the original two games, and I think like Rock the 80s or something, whatever the 80s one is. Those ones I have for that, and like fuck it, I love. To me, it's the music. It's like instead of karaoke, you're playing the songs. You're guitar
Mm.
karaoke basically, right? So I love
Yeah.
those games as well.
You mentioned some superhero video games, so I'll mention Spider-Man 2 was from the movie, but they made the video game. It's the first game that had like the good like flipping physics in a video game, and I absolutely loved it. I could do that for hours, just flipping around New York City. It was awesome. And then another game that was an open sandbox game, Hulk Ultimate Destruction. I freaking loved that game. That game was awesome. It wasn't based on any specific property other than like the Hulk comics basically, and it had more of a brighter kind of comic book look to it, appeal. It wasn't like more realistic, but it was so cool. Like you could like
Yeah.
jump over buildings, you could land on the top of roofs of buildings, you could destroy buildings, you could pick up a car, rip it in half, and use them as punching gloves. You could like pick up a bus and throw it. And there was some cool villains. Like, there was the leader in it. There was Abomination. It was a really awesome game, and I think if that ever got like a remaster, I would totally buy that game as well too.
Well, I wish that like I'd seen you play it, and I wish that they took that and like bring it to like the modern day and kind of like not exactly remaster, but use that as the basis to make a new game, right? Like a Hulk
Yeah,
game.
yeah, exactly. I just having like a open world sandbox, just you can destroy whatever the hell you want. Like, it was so fun. Just I don't know why they haven't done that since. I mean, I guess they did Prototype, which I think was the same company that did the Prototype games. I
Yeah,
just didn't like the aesthetic of that game. It was too much of like the same type of enemies the whole way through. It wasn't as fun. I thought Hulk was better.
yeah. But yeah, those are the ones I like. I could name a whole bunch more, but like Psychonauts and stuff. But I didn't really enjoy those ones as much. Like I played Siren as well. Siren, which I'm surprised was in the Astrobot game. They had a little call out
Yeah.
to that. But like those ones didn't really stick with me as much. But tons of unique titles at least.
I'll toss out then the Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time.
Yeah, I know.
That was I thought that was a great game. I played the sequel a little bit too. I never fully finished it, and then there was a sequel behind that. I wish I played those because I did like the first one quite a bit, and it's kind of like it did kind of like what Assassin's Creed is now doing,
Yeah,
but they've enhanced it a lot more gameplay wise.
I played it on GameCube after the fact, but yeah.
Yeah. And then I played another game called Kinetica, which was a racing game where you're like people in like these suits and you have like these wheels on your arms and you're like going around like on the sides of buildings and like it was neat. It wasn't a great game, but it was still a memorable game for me. I'll toss out Buzz Quiz TV
Oh,
on
I never played it on
PS2.
PS2.
Oh, you didn't play it on PS2? Okay.
No.
Oh, we played on PS3, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did play on PS2 prior to you having it just a little bit, so that's why I brought it up. And then Bloody Roar 3, which is a fighting game. I played the first two Bloody Roars on PS1, and then this one was just a newer, better version, I guess, of Bloody Roar. And then that kind of that's all I really need to mention. There's more, but you know what? Those are the ones that stood out for me, for my money, anyways.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, sorry. There's one more. I forgot to mention this one. I have mentioned this game before. It's War of the
I was gonna say
Monsters.
War of the Monsters. I was like, yeah, he's not gonna mention it. Okay.
War of the Monsters. Yeah, I gotta mention War of the Monsters. It's another game. I want them to do a remake of that game because just playing as these giant monsters, destroying the sections of city, throwing things at each other, so fun. Just a blast. Remake that, guys. Come on.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you got any more stories. If you got any more that you want to mention about the PS2,
I mean,
because it's been 25 years, man. It's hard to believe it's been that long.
I was gonna make it like we already talked about like the wrestling stuff, but I'm just gonna put out another story regarding it. Like when I went to college, we would play it in our dorms all the time, right? We'd play, whatever wrestling, whatever SmackDown it was at the time. This is when I first met our buddy Peter. So we were on like the second floor, and he was on the first floor. But we heard about each other, and he's like, "Oh yeah, he heard you pretty good at SmackDown. You guys should go play them." I'm like, "Yeah, okay." So I bring my controllers, and we go downstairs. And we play him and his roommate Neil, and his roommate Neil's like this kind of short but like muscular dude, right? And we're like, okay, we're playing against them, and I was like an ace at those games back in the day. Like I was just, I knew how to I knew how to play this system, and so did Pete.
I hated playing against you because you could reverse it in an
Every
instant every time. I was like, fucking Lewis.
but Pete
Every time.
Pete would game the system where he would like make his own created character, and like in that particular game they made like different areas you could damage, and he'd put it everything he did was like a move to the head. So like everything would, it's like, come on, you're not gonna always attack someone's head. But like
Yeah.
I knew how to game the system and whatever too, and like his roommate, this Neil guy, he went and made his character like a Shawn Michaels entrance where he'd like this really slow leg like lift up to get through the ropes, and every time he did, I'd knock him out, and then me and my I think my roommate, we just beat down Peter 2-on-1. He couldn't take us both on, and he couldn't get in the ring. And he's just like so mad. He just takes the controller. He's like, fucking entrance, and he punches it, shatters the controller into pieces. Just like, okay,
Wow.
that was your controller. I don't know which ones I brought, but that one was yours.
Yeah.
I said.
You're definitely calling that one is yours. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a bit of an overreaction. Fuck. Hey, are you wondering why there's a complete lack of God of War discussion? Well, fret not, my friend, as we've talked about the entire series to great lengths on this channel. So go ahead and check out those videos once you're done here. Spoiler alert, we like them. I guess that's kind of what we're gonna end on right there for the PS2. Happy 25 years,
Yeah.
PS2. I still got my box. Look at this.
Really?
PS2 box. Look at that. Yeah, I have I think all my boxes still. I should just get rid of them. I don't know why I still have them.
Oh.
But that's the PS2 box. Where can we find you?
I'm the LewisLightning. You can find me on Twitch and you can find me on YouTube.
And I am CountryBoy_9, also known as CountryBoy9, a bunch of different places where I unbox stuff like this Kratos right here. Check him out. He was a pretty cool unboxing. Him and his son Atreus. Obviously not from the PS2 era, but that's still.
You don't have any PS2 figures?
The best I could do is I have a Crash Bandicoot, but he's like every era, and it's not technically just PS2.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's the best I think I could do right now. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Leave some comments, leave some likes, leave some subscribes as well too. We would appreciate it. And let us know what you thought about this episode. Did you guys play the PS2? Because we know we sure loved it. It's my favorite system of all time still.
Yeah. See you guys.
And then we'll do the
Yeah.
opening, blah blah blah, yeah yeah yeah, yeah yeah yeah, yeah yeah yeah, yeah yeah yeah.